Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is the channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. And yes, I have finally actually painted my face this time. I say that little slogan, that little line in every single video, but I never actually put any interesting makeup on, so I thought, why not? I've got some time, it's a Saturday, let's do it. So I've been seeing a ton of people around the place, around the block, around the YouTube doing the mid-year book freakout tag, which I, of course, had to join the train on. I think that's such a cool idea. So I have put the list together myself and we're gonna do this tag. I'll link down below a few other people that I've seen that have done it really well, but I'd love to know your thoughts on some of the people that you've seen do this video and what you loved about them. So come and chat to me in the comments down below, and also answer some of these questions in the comments down below as well. I'd love to know what your favorite books were, or who some of your favorite characters were, or who your new favorite crush is, like all those sorts of things. Come and chat to me in the comments down below. But for my books, let's just get started. And we are starting this video with a tie, which was for the category of best book of the year so far. And if you've watched my recent videos, particularly my June reading update, or even one of my whatever-thon videos, which I'll link up above and down below for you to go and check out, you know that The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is very high up on this list. But if you've also seen, I can't remember what video it was, but I'll link it up above and down below as well, Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe is also really high up on that list. But let's start with this one. Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is about Addie LaRue, who made a deal with the devil 300 years sort of prior to the events of this book in order to escape a guy that she didn't want to marry and this feeling of entrapment that she had in the life that she was living. The deal was that she would live forever, but the unexpected caveat was that every person she meets would forget her as soon as they walked away. So Addie LaRue has been living about 300 years of her life since the 1700s to the present day, constantly being forgotten by the people that she tries to build relationships with. And obviously that's really hit her hard, but she is absolutely stubborn and set on not giving up. Until one day she meets a man named Henry, who I think she steals a book from his little bookshop, and then when she goes back the next day to get money for the book, she pretends to return it. He goes, dude, I know you stole it, and he clearly remembers her. So this sets off this chain of events of the two of them, one starting this beautiful relationship together, and two, trying to understand why Henry remembers who she is, what makes him so different. This book for me just completely hit different. It is not a plot-driven book, it is a character-driven book, and that is not something I would usually love, but this changed me. I am one of those sort of V.E. Schwab girlies that loves Addie LaRue. This book is honestly perfect for anyone who is worried about the mark that they're going to leave on the world, because it just shows you in so many ways the sort of unintentional mark that you can leave on people, and the ideas that you can plant in their head, and the artwork that you can inspire in the case of Addie LaRue. And I think it is just so beautiful, so well written. The characters are the sort that you just fall in love with in such an intense way, and at the end I love that you kind of have a little victory with Addie, and it was beautiful. So this is a strong contender for my best book of the year so far. But also we've got Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe, which is about a 17-year-old girl by the name of Lily Hugh, who I believe is living in the sort of 1950s, mid-1950s, when America is not a particularly safe place for her and her family. Lily is a Chinese American living in Chinatown during the time when the US was kind of going through what they call red paranoia, where they were incredibly threatened and afraid of the sort of threat of communism. So not only is it not a safe place for Lily just by nature of who she is and who she was born as, but also because she starts to build feelings for a girl named Kathleen. Kathleen Miller introduces Lily to a lesbian bar by the name of the Telegraph Club, and it sets off this beautiful sort of coming of age relationship in a very threatening environment. The thing I love the most about this book, I think, is that it starts every sort of section of the book with a timeline that shows you not only sort of the major historical events that are happening in both sort of America more generally, and then also within the LGBT community in America at that time, but also major events in Lily and her family's life as well. So it really signifies that the history that you're seeing isn't just Lily's history, it's the world's history, but also those histories are the same thing. They're so intertwined in Lily's life, and everything that's going on in the world impacts her life so heavily. And it's honestly just a beautiful book. It's a beautiful romance. It's so sweet. It deals with so many issues of racism and homophobia, and it's honestly a beautiful read. So those are my two favorite books so far. The next prompt is the best sequel that I've read so far, and this one was kind of an obvious one. I haven't actually read a ton of sequels, despite my sort of goal to read a lot more in the series, but Anyway, this one was obvious, and it is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. This is the sequel to House of Earth and Blood, which is sort of Sarah J Maas's official entrance into the adult genre. It is an urban fantasy. It follows Bryce Quinlan, who is a half human, half fae person, I think. House of Earth and Blood, the first book in this series, starts with Bryce Quinlan, set in Crescent City. Bryce Quinlan is known as a bit of a party girl. She's a bit rebellious, and she loves her friends, particularly this one friend Danica, I think her name is, until one night she comes back from a night out and finds all of her friends brutally murdered. Then I think about 2 years after that, as the murders sort of start back up again, and so Bryce Quinlan is recruited by the angels of this society to help them solve this particular murder, and she is given a sort of bodyguard or protector by the name of Hunt Athalar, who is this lovely man on this front cover. Obviously, this first book revolves around Hunt and Bryce getting to know each other, building a very, very beautiful relationship, and also this murder mystery plotline as well, but there is a sort of larger sort of mystery and political instability sort of environment at play with all of these different species vying for power, and also a very, very corrupt sort of leadership system at the very, very top. So frankly, this series is incredible. The end of this book absolutely floored me. I didn't know what to do with myself. I loved this book. It was amazing. The next prompt is a new release that I haven't read yet but want to, and for this there is a tie here as well. So the first book is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This one just came out. Emily Henry is one of those auto-buy authors for me. As for what this is about, it says Nora is a cutthroat literary agent at the top of her game. Her whole life is books. Charlie is an editor with a gift for creating bestsellers, and he's Nora's work nemesis. Nora has been through enough breakups to know she's the one men date before finding their happily ever after. To prevent another dating dud, Nora's sister persuades her to swap her city desk for a month's holiday in Sunshine Falls. It's a small town straight out of a romance novel, but instead of meeting sexy lumberjacks, handsome doctors, or cute bartenders, Nora keeps bumping into Charlie. She's no heroine, he's no hero, so can they take a page out of an entirely different book? I love that it's like set around literary agents or people who work in the publishing world. I think that's really, really cool. I love a good romance. It's been like blurbed by some absolute powerhouse authors. So Taylor Jenkins Reid, Colleen Hoover, Beth O'Leary, Ali Hazelwood, Casey McQuiston. Like, you couldn't get a better group of authors to write the little recommendation things. So super, super excited by this book. The second book is sort of one that I didn't expect to be on this list until I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and that is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is a sort of special edition from one of my book subscription boxes, and I don't know which one it is. I want to say Illumicrate, but I don't know, but yeah, it's a special edition version of this book, and there was massive hype when this book came out. I didn't originally like V.E. Schwab after I read A Darker Shade of Magic, but then I read Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, so now I feel like I'm in this awkward middle ground where I don't know how I feel about this author, so I'm super, super keen to read this book and hopefully get more of an idea of that. But as for what this is about, I'm going to read the blurb to you, and it says, 16-year-old Olivia Pryor is missing 3 things: a mother, a father, and a voice. Her mother vanished all at once, her father by degrees, and her voice was a thing she never had to start with. Her only companions are the ghouls she sees and her mother's journal, which captured a mind in turmoil. And I do not want to read any more than that of the blurb because I am already hooked by this book, and I don't want to know too much about what it's about before I jump straight in. Next up, we have most anticipated release for the second half of this year, and for me, that book is the sequel to Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, and the sequel's name is The Ballad of Never After. Once Upon a Broken Heart sort of follows on from the Caraval trilogy. It's set in the same universe, but it follows a different character. That character's name is Evangeline Fox, but it does bring in the lovely Prince of Hearts, whose name is Jax, I think it is, and he was a character that featured in Caraval towards the end. He was a very sort of conflicting character, but I was absolutely in love with him, and this book only made me fall in love with him more. As for what Once Upon a Broken Heart is about, I'm going to read you the blurb because it's been a really long time since I read this book, and it says, never make a deal with a fate. For as long as she can remember, Evangeline Fox has believed in happily ever after until she learns that the love of her life is about to marry another and her dreams are shattered. Desperate to stop the wedding and heal her wounded heart, Evangeline strikes a deal with the charismatic but wicked Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks for 3 kisses, to be given at the time and place of his choosing. But after Evangeline's first promised kiss, she learns that bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game, and that the Prince of Hearts wants far more from her than she pledged. He has plans for Evangeline, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy. I loved this book so much. I'm super, super excited for its sequel, so it is my most anticipated release. The next prompt is my biggest disappointment for the year so far, and for me, that was The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which is supposed to be a mixed media murder mystery, like an entirely mixed media murder mystery, which I was so excited about, but it ended up being written entirely in emails, which just wasn't mixed media for me. That's one type of media. The Appeal by Janice Hallett is set in a small town called Lockwood. It starts with the arrival of two secret newcomers who nobody really knows anything about. They're very mysterious, and it ends with an incredibly tragic death. In the middle, there is sort of an amateur production of All My Sons, which was sort of created to fundraise for a child's cancer treatment, but there's a big question throughout this book around whether all of that is a scam. And as for how we get access to these emails, the whole sort of premise of the book is that QC Roderick Tanner is trying to figure out what really happened in this case. There is someone in prison for the murder that happens at the end of the book, but he thinks that they're actually innocent. So he sets two of his law students, who are named Charlotte and Femi, to sort of figure out who the actual culprit probably is and what actually happened in this case. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a really interesting book, but the big reason why this was a big disappointment for me was because it's like 400, almost 500 pages long, and the murder doesn't actually happen until more than halfway through the book. And for me, that doesn't make it a murder mystery so much because, or at least it makes it a very disappointing murder mystery, because for me, my murder mystery, the murder has to happen at the beginning, or it has to happen really early on in the book for me to really get hooked in. It's not enough to know that it's coming but not know what it is, and that first half of the book was just all small town gossip. It wasn't really very interesting for me. There was an interesting scam plot line, but I didn't think that it needed as much time as it got at the very beginning. We didn't need so much time with all those characters at the beginning to learn who they are and their relationships. I figured that out within the first 100 pages, and that's when the murder could have happened. But yeah, this disappointed me because it just wasn't what I wanted. But my biggest surprise, for reasons that I've already told you, and that's because I didn't expect to like this author because I disliked a previous book that they've written, was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And I'm not going to go round and round in circles again on why. I'm just going to point this book out and move on. The next prompt is a favorite new author, and for me this is T.E. Kinsey, who is the author of the Lady Hardcastle murder mystery series, which follows Lady Hardcastle and her lady's maid, I think, named Flo, as they sort of attempt to solve a number of murder mysteries. Lady Hardcastle sort of put herself in like a self-imposed retirement, and then she moved to a quiet place in the country in order to just have a break from London life and just live out the rest of her life in peace and quiet, until one day a murder happens in that quiet town, and she believes that the police aren't doing everything that they can to investigate the murder, so she takes it on herself to do it. But the interesting thing about this particular series is it's told from her lady's maid Flo's perspective. So you're not seeing the sort of courtly politics and facade in the sort of high society dining rooms. You are actually seeing the underground and the underbelly with all the servants and hearing all the gossip, and frankly it kind of gave me like Downton Abbey vibes a little bit, and then you really get to hear about the servants that are seeing everything that happens behind closed doors because nobody notices them. But yeah, this book I absolutely loved, and the reason why I love the author as well as the book is because the way it was written was just incredible. The relationship that was built between Flo and Lady Hardcastle right from the very beginning, they had this amazing banter to the point where I didn't really care so much about the murder mystery. I just wanted to see more scenes of Lady Hardcastle and Flo just talking to each other. I thought it was amazing. I'm actually planning to do a big readathon sort of thing over a weekend where I read every single book in this series because they're very short and they're all on Kindle Unlimited. So I will give you more details on about that later when I actually get around to doing it. It's coming up sort of later in July or early August, I'm not sure. So yeah, I love this author, love that series. The next prompt is a sort of new crush from the beginning of the year from one of the books that I've read, and for me that is Delilah Green from Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I mean, she's this one and I think she's so badass. I think she's amazing, and I loved this book and I loved everything that sort of happened in this book. I loved the relationship. I loved how sassy Delilah Green was. As for what the book is about, I'm just going to read the blurb, and it says, Delilah Green swore she would never go back to Bright Falls. Nothing is there for her but memories of a lonely childhood. Her life now is in New York, with her photography career finally gaining steam and her bed never empty. Sure, it's a different woman every night, but that's just fine with her. When Delilah's estranged stepsister pressures her into photographing her wedding, Delilah finds herself back in Bright Falls once more. She plans to breeze in and out, but then she sees Claire Sutherland, her stepsister's stuck-up bestie, and decides that there's some fun and a little retribution to be had after all. As a busy single mother, Claire depends upon a life without surprises, and Delilah Green is an unwelcome surprise. at first. But when they're forced together during the many wedding preparations, Claire isn't sure she has the strength to resist Delilah's charm. Even worse, she's starting to think she doesn't want to. So I love Delilah Green. I think she was so sassy. I loved that she was just like going out sleeping with a bunch of people and didn't care what anybody thought about it. She was like, screw it, this is what I want to do, so this is what I'm gonna do. And I loved that, so I thought she was amazing, and she is my new crush. Next up, we have new favorite character, and for me this is a tie, but they're two characters from the same series, and that's Nick and Charlie from the Heartstopper series. I am in love with these two guys. I'm absolutely obsessed with this series. I love it so much. There's just not enough words. It follows two high school kids in England by the name of Nick and Charlie. Charlie is an openly gay kid at the school who was ousted, I think, a year prior to the events of this book, and has dealt with a lot of trauma as a result of that, to do with mental health. And then Nick is a sort of stereotypical lad. He's a rugby guy. He's always considered himself to be straight until he builds up this friendship with Charlie and begins to question his sexuality. And it's just this beautiful coming of age, finding out about ourselves, this sort of discovery of sexuality. It is an incredible series, and I love Nick and Charlie so much. I think they're amazing. And on that note, the next prompt is a book that made me happy, and that was Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, and the series made me just as happy. And actually, I'm going to the Young Adult Literature Convention in London tomorrow, and Alice Oseman is going to be there, and I'm literally dying. So this is that book. The second last prompt is the most beautiful book that I have bought so far this year, and for me that is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. I think the cover is absolutely stunning. This is a Fairy Loot exclusive edition, and I am honestly in love with it. I don't know anything about the book, but I am in love with the cover. As for what the book is about, again, I'm going to read you the blurb, and it says, deadly storms, an ancient curse, will her sacrifice save them all? For generations, deadly storms have ravaged Mina's homeland. Her people believe the sea god, once their protector, now curses them with death and despair. To appease him, each year a maiden is thrown into the sea in the hopes that one day the true bride will be chosen and end the suffering. Many believe Shim Chong, Mina's brother's beloved, to be the legendary true bride, but on the night Chong is to be sacrificed, Mina's brother follows her, knowing that to interfere is a death sentence. To save her brother, Mina throws herself into the water in Chong's stead. Swept away to the spirit realm, a magical city of lesser gods and mythical beasts, Mina finds the sea god, trapped in an enchanted sleep. With the help of a mysterious young man and a motley crew of demons, gods, and spirits, Mina sets out to wake him and bring an end to the storms once and for all. But she doesn't have much time. A human cannot live long in the land of the spirits, and there are those who would do anything to keep the sea god from waking. Honestly, this book sounds amazing to me. I know it got a lot of hype, I think, when it first came out, so I am obsessed. And the final prompt is a book that I need to read before the end of the year, and for me, that is this entire shelf up here. These are all the book subscription boxes I've received so far this year, and there's a couple in here, I think, which are slightly older than that, and I have read almost none of them, and I am very disappointed in myself for that. So I'm starting up a sort of challenge for myself where basically I read all of these books, but here we've got Fairy Loot and Illumicrate, so I thought to make it more fun, I could do Fairy Loot versus Illumicrate. So every month or every couple weeks, I'll pick one Fairy Loot book out of a sort of hat and then one Illumicrate book out of a hat, read them both, and they battle it out, and I'll let you know which one was my favorite. If that's a series you think you'd be interested in watching, let me know down below, because I really want to do it. So yeah, these are all the books that I need to read before the end of the year, and I am determined before I receive any more from various subscription boxes. So yeah, that is my mid-year book freak out tag. As I said at the beginning of the video, let me know down below your answers to some of these questions, what your favorite book was, your favorite crush, your favorite characters, what your biggest disappointment was, biggest surprise, all that sort of stuff. Let me know down below. I will put all of the questions in my description box so that you can sort of go through them and answer all of them or just some of them. I would love to hear from you guys, and I love to chat to you in the comments down below, and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really hope you liked this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. I don't know where, so I'm going to do some funny gestures, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!